Ajuri. Ajuri used to be a journalist, still is a journalist. I'm guessing that's why he has this job. Ajuri, thank you once again for joining us. I think I can hear you better now. I can hear you breathe.
Great. It's a privilege to be with you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. So just as an icebreaker, it's good to have someone from our side on the other side listening to us and talking to us, as opposed to what we had, in time past. And this is not a swipe at anybody, but, just saying thank you for having to have this conversation with us.
Thank you very much. Well, let me just start by saying one of the major challenges we have is really breaking that long-held notion that there's a great gap between government and the people. And it's a very difficult thing to do because, of course, for a very long time, governments have been very insensitive to the plight of people. They've obviously been very corrupt, and they have not done well in the history of this country. And so it's understandable. But really now the task before us is how to bridge that gap and how to really help our people understand that government is actually part of them and that they are part of government. Because if government is not doing well, it does not impact government as much as it impacts the people. So it's in the interest of our people to really be involved in what government is doing. And that's why in public affairs, we're working very hard to create a two-way conversation in the country, as opposed to the old ways of information management where governments would dish out information to Nigerians and they don't really care to hear back or to have any feedback from the populace in terms of policy formulation and implementation. So that's really the great challenge that we have.
Let me take you up on that. I didn't want to start with that, but let me just take you up because you're bringing this up, talking about the communication gap. This has been a thing with the Buhari administration from the first tenure. People have complained that they hardly get to hear from the presidency. And then there's also a problem with clear messaging. So we hear one thing and then some other person is coming out to, set the record straight. And this is detail for something that just happened a few days ago, was the issue of banks re-registering and customers of banks re-registering. The same thing happened between NIPOST and the FIRS. There's a problem with clear messaging, and I want to ask you, because you're like the face of the government, is there no synergy of sorts that, that the messaging would be clear for everyone before it's put out to us, the people, so that we're less confused?
Thank you very much. No, what you've asked is a very legitimate question, and it is a major concern, and it's a very real problem. This is the thing. So, federal government of Nigeria and federal government of any nation, for those who practice our system, it's a very large operation, and you really understand. You understand it from the outside as a citizen or a journalist. You understand it at some level, but as you enter, what you really begin to see are the complexities and the nuts and bolts of that thing that you just see from afar, and all of that. So, what I have found is that where you have hundreds of MDAs and agencies, it just takes one agency out of hundreds to be able to come out with a message that runs contrary to what the federal government has in mind, or maybe they will rush out some sort of policy thrust without consulting with the federal executive, for example. That happens.
But this messaging is supposed to emanate from somewhere. Now, if it's not clear from where it's coming from, then there is room for this mismanagement of information. Am I right? Or maybe I'm wrong.
No, absolutely. That's why I've agreed with you that it's a problem. I've actually agreed with you. I'm not in any way disagreeing with what you're saying. I'm actually acknowledging that this is a problem. What I'm saying, though, is that the challenge we've had, and again, it's easy to point out 2 or 3 examples where it has gone wrong and not point out the 100 plus examples of where it has gone right. But the major challenge we have is when you have the 2 examples you mentioned. If you talk about the FIRS, you talk about the most recent one, and all of that, was a situation where a young man who is not even so you have an SA on new media to the president, for example. He has a team of people that he works with that helps him to manage the accounts of government. It just takes one individual, one person, one young person who's working for somebody to tweet out something that they think is supposed to be tweeted but has not yet been verified, and then it creates a firestorm online. And that's what happened with the most recent example you're talking about. So it can just be human error, one person making an error, and then of course they find out that the information they put out is not correct and all of that. So these things happen. These are human institutions, and they're going to be human problems that require human solutions. And I want to also note, this is not a Nigerian phenomenon. Even if you go to the US right now and you look at, for example, on a daily basis, the contradictions between President Trump and Dr. Fauci on the response to the coronavirus, you will know very well that government communications around the world is a major problem. Does that mean that we should not strive every day to perfect it? No, of course, we need to continue to perfect the process. But I think to expect that an institution as large as the federal government of any country, that there will not be some lapses from time to time, is probably an unrealistic expectation. But we're working very hard to correct some of these historical trends.
Yeah, Ajuri, let me just push you one more on this. Right. I'm not saying that this is not something that's capable of happening. But I'm saying if this is the order of the day in an administration, it's happened one too many times. If something happens once and it happens the second time, you say, oh, it's a mistake. Maybe you didn't know, but now you know better. And then it happens more than 2 times. That's when you have a problem, because there's been a lot of...
But I disagree with that.
There's been a lot of bottles. If there is no loophole for all of these things to happen, there would not be any room for you to come and set the record straight or have these rebuttals.
I disagree fundamentally with the notion that we're setting records or that this is the order of the day. You've mentioned 3 examples out of thousands of communications that are coming out. You're talking about tens of... I'm coming, please. I'm coming, please. Yes, I'm coming. You have dozens of communications coming out from government every day, and you've cited about 3 or 4 examples over the last 1 or 2 months. That's really not a bad ratio, and I think to suggest that is reflective of the norm rather than the exception is not correct. Again, if you look at what's going on, I think in the West, it's very clear that these things happen. Some of them more frequently, and in fact, if you're talking about that example, that's an ongoing thing, on a daily basis, where one official is contradicting another official, and it has become a norm. I would not say that it's fair to say that is the key here. Do we have issues? Absolutely. And that's why I started by acknowledging it. I could have come and said, oh, started sugarcoating and telling you, oh, there's no problem and all of that. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that, yes, there are problems, and we have to address those problems. But to suggest that, that that's the norm, I think is not correct.
Okay, let's move on to one of the most teething problems that we have. In fact, the most talked about issue that we're facing as Nigerians today, the hike in pump price of petrol and, of course, the electricity tariffs. But let's start.
So I'm hearing an echo.
Yeah, I'm sure we're going to fix that. The tech guys are going to fix that. I'm so sorry about that.
Okay.
We're getting feedback from our live streaming. We're going to change that right now.
Okay.
Well, quickly, the price hike issue, at a time where, we're in a pandemic, it's a worldwide pandemic, the world has never experienced this, ever. And this is a time where governments are trying their best to ameliorate the sufferings of their people, to institute some pay cuts, tax cuts and tax holidays, trying to make sure that there's some cushioning effect to help the people and the economies that are shrinking. Nigeria decides to institute a price hike for pump price, which is almost everyone uses petrol. It's either they're using it for their generator or they're using it for their cars or their motorcycles. And again, electricity is very important for those who are doing business, for those who live in homes. You want to have air at night when you're sleeping. You want to be able to refrigerate your food because, these are essentials. But then in the thick of things, I'm wondering, why would the government choose this time, of all times, to institute that? Right. You tell me it's been a long time coming, but is this the best time to do that?
Well, actually, my response would not necessarily be that it's a long time coming, even though that is the truth. My response is actually to say that what you said is correct. I've been moving, obviously engaging with people around the country on radio stations nationwide. I mean, just last week alone, I was engaging in every state between the South, the Southeast, and the Southwest, in addition to some northern states. And one of the common threads you get is this question of timing. And it's an important question. First of all, there's a perception right now in the country that government just woke up one morning and decided to fix the price at the fuel price at the pump to 162 naira per liter. That is the perception. So you know, even the way that you asked the question was, why would government hike fuel price at this time? That is what you've asked, and that's what a lot of people ask. But that question alone frames the situation in a way that is not in line with what has actually happened. And let me be very clear on what I'm talking about. In March, and anybody who is watching can fact check what I'm saying. In March, we made a public announcement. It was carried everywhere, AIT, NTA channels, radio stations everywhere, that when the Petroleum Products Pricing Regulatory Agency, PPPRA, made a public announcement that government is no longer setting the fuel price anymore, pump price of fuel anymore, PMS price. And before that time, PPPRA will be the authority to come out and say, Nigerians, this is the pump price, this is what it is. If anybody is selling above this pump price, report to X, Y, and Z. That is how it had been during the subsidy regime. Now, they now said, from this day forward, this is March 18, I think it was March 18th, they came out and said, we're no longer setting pump price. What we are doing now is we have deregulated the sector. Right? The international market, the international oil price, and the interplay of market forces will determine the price at the pump from now on. We are fully deregulated. That was the announcement in March. Now, in March, when that announcement was made, the international oil price was what? $15 per barrel. That is $15 per barrel. What happened immediately, if you recall, I'm sure you were in this country when it happened, was the pump price dropped from 145 naira per liter down to 120 something. And Nigerians were jubilating. They said, finally, government don't commode their hand for this subsidy matter. Finally. And they were happy and they were jubilating because price went down. Now, what has happened since March? We have seen a gradual recovery in the international oil price, and we know that the foundation stone for what determines pump price globally, including Nigeria, is the international oil price. That is the benchmark. So when the oil price went from $15 per barrel up to now where it is above $40 per barrel, more than double, right? So naturally, the price at the pump is going to reflect on that everywhere, not just in Nigeria, around the world. So now the idea that people have, that government just woke up and decided that we want to inflict suffering on Nigerians, we unilaterally hiked the price. What they're really saying, right, is that we are not willing to go back into the subsidy regime that people have been complaining about for years. So that is really what it is. It's a coincidental timing that the recovery of the international oil price has led to an increase in the pump. But people have wrongly framed the issue as government deciding that we're going to hike fuel price, when indeed we took the liberalization decision in March.
I totally get that, and I want to go back to my question. I started by saying that we're in a time where countries are looking for the best ways to cushion the effects of whatever.
That's a separate conversation, though.
Yes, exactly. And I want to say, and I'm going to ask this question. I'm hoping that you will be able to answer it. If you want to hear it. If this is what you're telling us, which we all know, I mean, it's public that this is what the PPPRA are doing. What is government doing to help us cushion the effects? Because again, we're getting salary cuts, we're getting pay cuts, people have lost jobs. Unemployment is at its all-time high, and I know this is across boards in so many countries. You know, there's so many aspects of the economy that are taking a hit. But what is the Nigerian government, detailed for the Buhari government, doing to ameliorate the sufferings of Nigerians, especially with the electricity? I want to hear the story too for the electricity. So, I mean, it doesn't mean that government cannot do something to help us, because our purchasing power has reduced. But then the cost of living has hit the roof.
I'll be happy to answer your questions.
Yes, please.
Yeah. Yeah, so the first question you asked me, which I have just answered, was a specific question, not about what government is doing in terms of cushioning the effect. You asked me a specific question about the fuel price hike. Why has government hiked fuel price? And that is what I answered by saying that government did not hike a fuel price. What we've done is we've deregulated the sector in March. That was my answer. Now you've asked the question about cushioning the effects, and that is where now I can answer that. Okay, so now what we've done, there are two major things. In March, President Muhammadu Buhari constituted the Economic Sustainability Committee that established the 2.3 trillion naira Economic Sustainability Plan. That committee was chaired by His Excellency the Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo. Now, he is also tasked with overseeing the implementation of the 2.3 trillion naira Economic Sustainability Plan. The plan is fully funded. We're not looking for money. We've set aside money, which is another major reason why the subsidy regime became unaffordable. I think it's important to note, and I'll just mention this very quickly in passing, just for our people to have perspective. From now, we are in September now. From January 2020 till now, we have lost 60% of our revenues. That means we are currently sharing 40% of our January revenue rate with the states and local governments, and we're still thinking of how we're going to pay all of our salaries on time. That is all of the armed forces, all of the police force, all of the federal civil servants, all of the public doctors, public teachers, and of course, all of the pensioners, and then of course, making sure that you're still building your railways, your roads, your bridges, your airports, seaports, power plants, dams, agricultural production, etc. All of that has to continue. So now what we've done is we've said, if you recall now, the difference between now and say 2014, when there was oil price crash, is that they couldn't even pay salaries. We're doing all of that. You're not hearing any public worker say that they're not being paid their salary. Nobody is saying that. We are doing that. So now the issue now is about making sure that we are reinvesting that money in a way, instead of going back into providing cheap fuel. Let's see how we can create new jobs, not just replace the old jobs that have been lost, and also sustain existing jobs, but create new ones. So how are we going to do that? First of all, we've just launched, and this is verifiable. Any of our viewers can go to www.survivalfundapplication.com. I'll say it again, www.survivalfundapplication.com. What it is part of the Economic Sustainability Plan. We've set aside 75 billion naira in grants for Nigerian businesses only. How it works is you go to this website and you apply. This is not a loan. This is not money you will repay. It's just grant. We're just giving it to businesses. What we're going to be doing is we're offering payroll support so that our small businesses across the country can be able to pay their salaries of their workers between 30,000 naira and 50,000 naira over the next several months to cushion them into the post-COVID-19 era. That's very critical. What we're also doing is we're giving individuals, artisans, transport workers, these are bus conductors, bus drivers, mechanics, etc., carpenters, plumbers, we're giving them operations grants of 35,000 naira that they're not going to have to repay to help cushion what they're doing at the present. That's all on survivalfundapplication.com, and it just launched on Friday.
Just a second, I want to ask
Monday.
you, and you said artisans. Okay. Does it cover, because there are a group of artisans who have been unable to still go back to their business. I mean, the mechanics and the other guys have been able to go back. But what about the guys who are hairdressers, gym operators, and spas?
Absolutely, yeah. Thank you very much.
Category?
Yes. They do. So this is how it works, and I want to be very precise. So how it works is on Monday, that is Monday, September 21st, just 2 days ago, we launched the website. That is www.survivalfundapplication.com. So how it works is we have phased it, because what we did not want is a situation where all MSMEs in the country rush and crash the website at the same time. So what we've done, and by the way, this has been announced on radio stations nationwide, on television. We've been very aggressive in terms of publicizing it so that people will know. Even in terms of Hausa, we've gone to BBC Hausa, we've gone to several Hausa stations across the north. In addition to this, I personally have gone to the southeast, southwest, and all of that. So anyway, how it works is the first phase is for MSMEs that deal with private education. These are private schools, private nurseries, private crèche, private primary school, private secondary school. So because we know that the COVID-19 COVID-19 lockdowns disproportionately affected private education. Of course, public schools benefit from public funding, public teachers and all of that. Of course, the private schools don't. So the first phase we have set for the private schools. So the first phase runs for the first week in effect. So from Monday, September 21st to Friday, September 25, any person who is involved in private education, MSMEs, businesses in this country, can apply for payroll support, for example, and operations grants for their staff members. And then in addition to that, that's until Friday in terms of the exclusive window. Then on Friday, this coming Friday, the 25th, at midnight on Friday morning, we're going to open the portal for hospitality-based MSMEs. These are MSMEs that deal with hotels, MSMEs that deal with food retail. They will be able to come in and have an exclusive window from Friday to Monday. So this whole weekend is going to be for the registration of hospitality-based MSMEs. And then the final phase is for all other MSMEs. These are gym owners and all the people that you mentioned, all other MSMEs from all sectors that can key in from Monday, September 28th at midnight. So Monday morning, midnight, they will be able to go to that website and register to take part in the 75 billion naira in grants.
All right. I'm going to paste these questions. I'll start by looking at the figure that I saw when I looked at the website. First things first.
Right.
This is estimated to save at least 1.3 million businesses or jobs across the Federation. And you're going to be at least covering 35,000 individuals per state. And we have
minimum per state, yeah.
Minimum.
Minimum, yeah. Right.
And I'm thinking to myself, this is a great thing. I must applaud the federal government. This is a great thing that the federal government is doing. This is a great cushioning effect. But for a country that has 200+ million people, I'm guessing, is this a first phase? Is there going to be another phase? Or am I being too greedy? Right. I'm wondering, what difference is this going to make, being that, I mean, you're opening up the site to cover 35 million people, but we're plus 200 million. This is like a scratch.
Thank you.
It's like a scratch.
Right. So thank you very much. It's a good observation. Of course, this is what we have thought about already. That's why this program we're talking about, the Survival Fund, is only a sliver of the 2.3 trillion naira economic sustainability plan. That is 2.3 trillion naira that is devoted only for jobs for Nigerians. That does not include, and I want to be very specific about this. I need to say very quickly that the 75 billion naira in grants that we're talking about are dedicated to particular. We want to protect the interests of disproportionate groups. So let me just mention that the president was adamant that out of this fund, a minimum, that's minimum, not maximum, a minimum of 45% of this total fund is going to be reserved and set aside for female-owned businesses, because the president said that women must be prioritized in terms of the capitalization of their businesses, not just because of their importance to the national economy, but because they are the anchors of the homes across this country. Then the president also said that a minimum of 5% is dedicated to businesses owned by physically disadvantaged persons who have always been left out in these kinds of activities. So that's a major part of this. Now, you've touched on a very important point, which is to say that scratches the surface. When we talk about 200 million Nigerians, it's important to note that 70% of them are of course very, very young people. The bulk of our MSMEs are being run by about approximately 30% of the population or so, thereabout, right? So you're really looking at a figure of about, when you talk about heads of household and all of that in this country who we're trying to reach, you're talking about between 50 and 75 million thereabout that you really, really want to reach immediately. Now, so yes, it's true that that part
there are also a lot
surface.
of young people who are in universities, who are entrepreneurs, who are small business.
Oh, absolutely. I'm not. Yeah, of course. You factor that that in. And that's why the economic sustainability plan is really targeting young people, actually. So how we're doing that in very specific terms, aside from the survival fund, which is very important, we've also put in place the special public works program, where we are recruiting, and notice that in all the programs I'm mentioning, from the survival fund to the special public works program, and the ones I will still explain very soon, we are the core thrust are two things. One, these are interventions only for indigenous Nigerian companies who employ only indigenous Nigerian labor, who will use only indigenous Nigerian raw materials. That is very critical. That is the foundation stone of the entire 2.3 trillion naira sustainability plan.
Yes, I was about to ask what the conditions are, because the conditions have to be made plain, and what is the verification process, because we do not want to have another situation like the money market scheme, what was it called?
The trader money. What was wrong with that?
Trader money, yes.
Yeah, what was wrong with that?
We want to be sure that these monies go to those who are deserving, and not people who are in the guise of Nigerian-owned businesses. So what's the verification process like? No.
Wait. First, I have to hold you there. The trader money scheme was under the Government Enterprise and Empowerment Program. Nobody, I repeat, nobody, go onto the internet, find me a report where it was even suggested that money dedicated to these traders, 3 million traders who have benefited, that monies went to somebody else. I can tell you that is a lie, and I'll tell you why. The process that was set up was very direct. Every account that we dealt with had a BVN, just as you have BVN on your account. Every trader benefited from trader money was made to register with a bank and register a BVN, so that we pay money directly into their accounts. This one no be cash transfer. This is money that we digitally paid into their accounts.
It was a conditional cash transfer I was thinking about. I'm sorry, mix up. So, and that cash transfer was never done as a transfer, because monies were given by hand. So why call it a conditional cash transfer?
Yeah, that's okay. So that's a set. Yes.
How do you trace those monies, and how do you follow up?
Well, first of all, it's called cash transfer, not money transfer. Cash is cash. That means cash is money that is paper that you touch. So when you're transferring cash, it's because you're handing somebody cash. The reason why, let me explain something. The reason why that program is very, very critical is that aside from the success of trader money, and we've won international awards for that, so that's not even in question. The issue of conditional cash transfer, which was done according to World Bank formula, what happened was that money is going to rural communities where people have no access. We're talking of communities that are satellite communities. Some of them you go to, there's one in Mambila where you will go by Okada 3 hours because there's no road to some of those villages. They have no access to banks. They're not like you and I who are in urban centers who can take Okada, who can take Tukumbo or taxi, or however we want to move, we can move. They don't live where we're living. They're living in the far outskirts, 3 hours outside of any bank. So you actually have to travel to them physically to give them cash. That's a real thing. So that's one of the major encumbrances, and we're trying to reach these rural communities who have not had access to money ever before in terms of intervention, because they don't benefit from some of the traders that benefit from being in markets in urban centers. They can easily reach a bank somewhere in Aba or Makurdi or Yenagoa or anywhere. The people that we're dealing with the cash transfer don't have those opportunities in the northwest and the northeast and the north central and all of that. It's very, very difficult for them, and that's why we intentionally targeted them the way we do with cash, because they don't have accounts. Many of them are not even literate. So these are the challenges.
Just a second. I'm sorry to talk over you.
Yes.
For those who have questions, if you're putting them on the timeline, it will be very difficult for us to go through those questions. So please, there's a question mark at the bottom of the screen. Post your questions there. When I click on it, Ajuri and I can see those questions and answer them quickly. Don't forget, we don't have time. Just go to the question mark box, put your questions there, and we'll read them out. Sorry, you can go on.
All right. Yeah, thank you very much. So what we're doing now, now that we've looked at the social investment programs, is the special public works program is not going to be cash. It is going to be paid via account. So every person that registers has to go and get their BVN, open a bank account that government will pay directly into. The reason why government has adapted that, I'm talking about those who are being registered under the Special Public Works Program. That's 1,000 young people in every local government area of the Federation. Now, these young people are going to conduct urban and rural sanitation. They're also going to, most importantly, construct rural roads, linking strategic farms to markets, linking strategic industries to ports, using Nigerian-sourced bitumen. So we're not just using Nigerian labor. They're going to be using Nigerian-sourced raw materials.
Because using...
Of course now, of course. They are being trained. They are being trained.
That's a recipe for disaster.
Of course now, every person, for example, if we're giving a contract to Julius Berger to construct a road, if you go across this country, you're not going to be seeing white people constructing our roads. They're Nigerians. And these are not people who went to school for engineering, many of them. Many of them were trained by the company who is the contractor. So this is how it's going to work with this program. We're going to bring our young people are very gifted, not just physically, but intellectually. So for us now, what we're going to do is we're going to train them first. They're going to be paid during their training, and then they're going to go out and execute these projects and all of that. So it's going to work very similar to Empower in effect. So we're going to make sure that it's spread all across the country. So already what we've done is we've reached basically the final stage. We've already established the state selection committees. These are committees. Each state has a selection committee that is comprised of academicians, NGO officials, chairman of State Christian Association in Nigeria, chairman of the State Islamic Authorities, and all of that. Then they execute the recruitment on a non-partisan basis. That's why we set it up with non-partisan members. Now, once they conduct the recruitment, now it's just a matter of sending the young boys into young men and women into training, and then, of course, execution of the program. These are just two small programs out of a much larger set of programs within the Economic Sustainability Plan. The other programs, let me be very clear, is agriculture. This one is 5 million jobs, and this is very, 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 very massive. How it works is we are all states of the Federation have agreed, PDP states, APC states, APGA states, all have agreed that they're going to supply the federal government with between 20,000 and 100,000 hectares of land each. In exchange, the federal government is going to employ these young people all across the country from the localities to execute an unprecedented land clearing and cultivation scheme where they're going to clear lands that are not cultivatable into cultivatable land. So we're going to expand our stock of cultivatable land. And then after it's cultivated, they're going to be cultivating targeted high-value export commodities, cash crops like cocoa, cashew, and groundnut and the like, so that we can expedite the process of diversifying our revenue base away from oil and gas, even as we're creating new jobs and cross-generationalizing the agricultural industry, from the elders who are currently manning the sector to young people, bringing young people actively into the sector.
All right, one last question, and then we'll go to the questions because I need you to get back to your business. How long will these many programs last? Will it go beyond the lifespan of this government?
Yes.
This government expires in 2023. Although we always, throw it to banter that government is a continuum, we hardly see that happen in successive governments. What is the plan that has been spinned into the process to make sure that this outlives this government, and it is so deeply rooted in the system, so much so that nobody can come tomorrow and change things?
Thank you very much. Well, first of all, President Muhammadu Buhari is the first president since 1999 to make it a policy that projects that need to be completed must be completed regardless of who started them. He's not interested in vanity issues about who started this, who completed this. His own is what is the benefit for Nigerians. So what he does is projects that were started, maybe 10% or whatever they were, by Goodluck Jonathan, for example, or by Obasanjo, he's making sure that those projects are prioritized so that they're completed before the end of his administration. In addition to the ones that he has started, he has said that he's going to finish their projects and also finish the ones that he also has introduced, so that the next government comes in with a fresh slate of fully completed projects across sectors. But let me also say that it's a good question you've asked. The Economic Sustainability Plan is a 12-year plan. It's really an economic stimulus to really empower as many Nigerians in the fastest time possible to reconstruct the country across sectors. Now, the the key is that it fits hand in glove with the medium-term plan that is being developed, that is going to be unveiled in December this year, that is going to be the successor to the economic recovery and growth plan. That is the next development plan that's going to run from 2021 to 2025. So this plan fits in hand in glove with that plan, because those who are designed this plan, the stimulus plan, are also designing the medium-term plan. So in terms of continuity, irrespective of who takes power in 2023, we would have substantially already gone through the implementation of the next development plan by the time the next administration comes in. So we can assure Nigerians that that is not going to be a concern.
All right, let's go quickly to the question and answer segment before we wrap this up. I think
Let me just thank you, first of all. I want to thank you for the opportunity of creating this forum and engaging our young people on these very critical issues. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Henry the Great here says, why is Nigerian refineries, or why are they not working? Okay, so that's his first question. I'm just going to try to lump them together. And he says,
why are they not working?
Why is it that Lagos's port...
Okay.
Yeah, and why is it that Lagos port, while Port Harcourt, Warri, Calabar port so Lagos port is working, I'm sure that's what he means, and then Port Harcourt, Warri, Calabar ports are malfunctioning. That's a very good question, and I mean,
I'll be happy to answer that.
My bias, which is that, you know, the dredging of the Calabar seaport, which would have enabled Tinapa to still be standing and alive right now, it's not happening because of some political reasons. I think you would be in a better position to explain that to us.
Yeah, thank you very much. So first of all, I think a lot of this has to do, again, with effective information and effective communication, right? So let me start from the first question, which is about refineries. A good question. So where we are right now in specific terms, again, this can be fact-checked, is that, of course, the refineries have not been working as a result of many years of diversion and corruption. We all know that. So where we are now is the president has said, look, it is going to be the private sector that is going to drive refining in this country, as it is done everywhere in the world. So in effect, he has created, obviously, the policy framework that people have now keyed into. We all know about the Dangote refinery completing the work in 2021. In addition to that, based on the policies of government in terms of tax incentives, free trade zone implementation, land allocation, and all of that, we've been able to attract a new 200,000 barrels per day refinery that is being built by the BUA group led by Mr. Rabiu, the chairman, who is going to build that refinery in Akwa Ibom State, in addition to the Dangote refinery. In addition to that, the president has also set up the policy framework for the establishment of 4 major modular refineries across the Niger Delta and the southeast. There's one in Imo, there's one in Delta, one in Rivers State, and one in Edo State that are all coming on stream by April of next year. So now, finally, for the NNPC refineries, you have of course, Port Harcourt, Warri, and Kaduna, the ones that have been neglected. What we've done with that is the president has said, we're going to change the way this has been done. So he now said government is no longer going to plow a whole bunch of money into it. We're going to bring in the private sector. So we have ENI and AGIP currently undertaking the rehabilitation of Port Harcourt refinery, and we're going to pay them when it is done. Once they bring it to 90% utilization by 2023, we're going to pay them by allowing them to refine crude oil to the point where they would have recouped their investment instead of giving them cash.
We have to let you go because it's, we're almost getting up to the top of the hour for our news. But
you're very welcome. Just very quickly, the One port, by the way, has been resuscitated by this administration. So that should be, you can confirm that online.
That remains to be seen. Well, I would like to go there myself, so I can.
Yes, we've just welcomed new containers, new ships loaded with containers. So you can go and verify it on Google. We've done it.
All right. Well, thank you very much. For those who are watching, Ajuri Ngelale is the Senior Special Assistant to Mr. President on Public Policy, Public Affairs.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for speaking with us.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
It's been a very interesting conversation. Thank you all for watching. Ajuri, have a nice day.